So I got asked in the comments of a previous video on bar chords and how to bar properly. It's actually quite an interesting topic and I don't think it's covered particularly well on the internet. So I'm going to do a very quick video on this. One of the things to understand about bar chords, generally speaking, or just barring with the first finger or whatever finger you're using, is that the rotation of the finger actually makes a difference. Depending on whether or not I'm this way around or this way around can make bar chords a lot easier. So what do I mean by that? Let's say, for example, I want to bar just on the 5th fret all the way across the strings. If I put my finger flat on the guitar, and you can see it like this, I'm completely flat on. What ends up happening is that the little ridges in your hand where the knuckles bend often get caught in the strings, and then you buzz whatever string sits here on your hand naturally, which is very, very common, and it's incredibly difficult to get rid of that if you play that way. So the very simple thing you can do is literally just turn your hand outwards this way. So I'm going to just basically rotate the hand slightly like this, and I'm rotating it into the instrument. So I'm actually trying to play the majority of the bar chord with the outside of the finger this way. So there's a difference between this, which I'm not having any problem doing this, but I'm on a very, very low action with very light strings here. So it's kind of easy for these things to be a little bit sloppy and still get away with it on this kind of setup. But if I now rotate the finger, and I'm literally rotating that sort of middle knuckle here into the fretboard like this, hopefully you can see the slight difference in hand position here between these two. Now that's really important because when you come to play slightly more difficult chords, not just a straight bar, but things that maybe have like a finger on the A string or fingers on the G string, all these kind of things, it's very easy to buzz those kind of chords if you're not slightly side on. So my first recommendation would be get the outside of that finger engaged. I don't know if you can see that on the camera particularly well, but you can probably see there's a few marks on my finger and it's all the way around from the strings. You can see it on the side of the finger there. So that's the first thing. The second thing with bar chords is really make sure that the thumb is in a natural space. So if I am already putting the thumb on the neck and the thumb is dictating where my fingers sit, I'm in for a real problem because that really stops the hand from moving. Just to give you a brief idea of this, the whole rotation thing I was talking about, as you can see, sort of dictates where the thumb sits. If I rotate onto the inside edge of the thumb, the hand sits around here, and if I rotate onto the outside edge, we sit all the way around here. So you can see how much difference the thumb makes to your technique. It's a lot. And if you have the thumb set dead straight on the back of the neck, quite often what's going to happen is you're going to limit what your fingers can do from that position initially. So what you want to do is always start with your finger sort of being pulled back onto the instrument and then put your thumb somewhere which is nice and natural. So for me, that actually points quite a lot towards the headstock. It's not a straight up motion. I don't find this particularly powerful. I don't find it particularly nice. So I try and point a little bit more towards the headstock. And the reason for that is that if you point your thumb straight up, as you can see, the wrist starts to do this. It starts to come out a little bit. And that's something we really want to avoid for a lot of reasons. It makes your playing really awkward. Whereas if you point the thumb slightly more towards the headstock, you can see if I just point that straight there, we get this nice natural wrist position. Now that's not what classical technique will tell you. That is not what a lot of internet guitarists will tell you, but it is what anyone who knows a lot about the physiology of how the hands work will tell you is the optimum way to play. So that thumb is going to make a really big difference on the back of the neck. Don't worry if it sits slightly towards pointing that way. This also massively changes depending on the height of your instrument. So if I have my instrument really high, I tend to string my instrument on a strap pretty high, so you can get away with these kind of things. Whereas if the instrument is a lot lower down, if I just sit this on my leg for a minute, what's going to happen is that thumb might come a little bit more towards the top of the guitar. It's still pointing, as you can see, slightly more towards the headstock. But you can see the difference. It was here, and now it's here to get the same angle. So one of the things to really experiment with in your own playing, and also to just make sure you are doing consistently, is having a consistent height of the instrument. Something that really throws a lot of people live when they first play for the live for the first time is that they string their guitar slightly lower or higher than they usually have it sitting down, and then the whole thumb position has to change for that height, and then the whole thing sort of fails because you've practiced in the wrong way. So that's the other thing. Height of the guitar really matters with these kind of things. Really make sure you've got that consistent and you're playing in the same way you are are standing up as you are sitting down. The other final thing with this is just making sure that you are putting the right part of the hand on the guitar in the first place. If you put the fingertip like this on the instrument in the first place, you can kind of see what happens. I naturally sort of want to curl this finger, and then it becomes a little bit difficult to bar there because I've got to relax this joint here before I can bar it properly. You can kind of see the problem there. If instead you start with the bottom of the bar, so literally I'm trying to put this part of my finger into the instrument like this, and then put the rest of the finger on the instrument, that's much easier to find the right space for doing that with each finger. And it works with every single finger as well. It's like if you put the bottom of the bar on first, even something awkward like that with your third finger, which is really not very pleasant to do, but, or let's say little finger, if I try and get the bottom of the bottom of that on first, and this is not an easy bar for anyone to do. I can't quite get that one, to be honest, because my little finger doesn't really work like that. But the point being is, if I am doing partial bars with a little finger like this, if I try and put this note on first and then flatten down, you can kind of see what happens. We get this arch going over the B string. You can't hear it. Whereas if I try and put the lowest string on first, we get a much nicer result. So always start backwards with your bar chords. That might sound very counterintuitive, but it actually really helps you get the right technique. Hopefully that's been helpful. Any questions in the comments, let me know.